Well, hello everyone. I'm back and it is time to discuss some very important topics, some crucial topics in programming in general. So we've already discussed variables and data types, and we've created our own data types as classes. We've instantiated, when you use the word new, objects. You understand what the structure and the keyword, the structural keywords are, namespace and class. We've created methods. We've done a lot of wonderful things. The only problem is we have been sequencing statements in order. That is, we have defined a value, we've assigned it a number, we've called console.writeLine, we've created a sequence, and that is a term that you'll hear a lot in programming if you read textbooks about it. We've created a sequence of statements, but life doesn't happen that way, and programs don't happen that way. In the morning, when I wake up to eat food, I don't have a script of things that I have to do. I have to make decisions. If I'm feeling well, I'll eat this food. If I'm craving something salty, I'll eat that food. If I'm running late for work, I may do this and not that. I may just brush my teeth but not comb my hair, that kind of thing, or just keep it short. Or, I should have combed my hair. When I get home, do I need to shave it or do I need to get a haircut? So we live life based on decisions, and we need to make those decisions in our programs. So there are a couple of options we have here, and I'll break them up into two videos. We have if statements. So like I said, when I wake up and I'm trying to make these decisions, they're based on conditions. Now, if you remember, we discussed Boolean values. That is, I declared a Boolean value, truth, and set that equal to true, which is a key word. Now, when I wake up and I'm making those decisions, I make those decisions based on a condition, a logical condition. Is it true that I'm late for work? So, let's create a variable. Late for work is equal to true. Am I late for work? True. So, let's create an action. Set that equal to brush teeth. Now this is probably not a great example. Let's go with comb hair. There we go. So, based on a condition, I'm going to decide whether or not I'm going to take an action. Then let's call this alt action, an alternate action, which is grab food and go. So, I wake up, burp, 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 that's my alarm, and it is 15 till 8, and I need to be at work by 8. Uh-oh, I'm going to be late for work. So that condition is true. So the syntax for that construct is if, open parentheses, just like we did with methods, but this is a different context, parentheses, and we enter a condition that evaluates to true or false. In this case, our variable, late for work, represents true. So I'm going to console.writeLine, writeLine, action, alt action. Now what I've done, I want to show you this, and this is actually a tangent, but a very important one for you. When I'm typing here and I do console.writeLine and I hit open parentheses, IntelliSense or Visual Studio kicks in and it gives me suggestions. And if I hit Alt Action or AL, it filters it down and it says, okay, based on what you have in your code, Alt Action is a variable you've declared. If I hit Tab, it fills it in for me. And that's one of the ways that I've actually been able to fill in some of these variables very quickly. I should have said that earlier, but let IntelliSense work for you. It can make you a lot more productive. Anyway, back to this. So if I'm late for work, then I will just grab food and go. Otherwise, there we go. We'll stick with that. So we'll see what happens here. Let's run this. I'm going to grab food and go and comb my hair. So I've got two different actions happening here. Like, well, no, if you're late for work, you're not going to comb your hair. So you see here, let me say that if not late for work. So this exclamation point right here flips the truth. So if not late for work, then comb hair, or grab food and go. So you see it just says comb hair. So that's checking to see if something is false, and if it is false, then it evaluates to true. And I know that's a little tricky, but I wanted to introduce you to alternate logic. We're going to start looking at the world in different ways here with programming. So we have the ability to interject some things into our code based on decisions. So now we can do alternate things as well. If, else if. So let's just go with else right now. If, else. So now our decisions have actually changed. At first, when we first ran this and we checked whether we were late for work or not, it was grab food and go and then comb hair. Now we're going to say, if late for work, grab food and go, and that's it. Else, comb your hair. So we're only going to see one statement come back. That's the difference between an if. So you have the option of an if, and that doesn't necessarily completely change the flow of your sequence as you're going down here. Imagine a branching off. It's called branching or selection. Imagine it branching off. If I just say if late for work, then I'll grab food and go and definitely comb my hair. But the logic for this is, if I'm late for work, grab food and go, else comb my hair. I've got a slower morning. So look at this. We just have grab food and go. So we have two different constructs here. We have an if and an else, an if-else. So if, then we have if-else. We say, well, sometimes in life there are multiple decisions. There are multiple options other than just this or that. So there's another construct. Let's create another action. Let's say action 2 equals a dog. And let's create another condition. Dog is hungry equals true. So, poor dog, I apologize, but if I'm late for work, I'm grabbing my food and going. But else, if I am not late for work, you see that exclamation point? So let's change that to a false. So if I'm not late for work, which will be false, so that evaluates to true. I know it's a little twisted logic, but I want to go ahead and wrap your mind around it. Now we can connect these conditions together by using these operators. So I did put these ampersands together. I said if not for late for work and the dog is hungry, then I'm going to action 2. Else, console.writeLine, alt action. So we've got multiple things happening here. If I'm late for work, then just grab food and go. But I'm not late for work. So that's going to evaluate to false, that condition that's within the parentheses. Else, if I'm not late for work, so I'm not late for work, that's false. Late for work is false, so I'm not late for work, so that actually evaluates to true. and ampersand ampersand, the dog is hungry, which is true, so that evaluates to true, then feed the dog. Else, comb hair. No, sorry, grab food and go. Let's comb hair here. Else, comb hair. So the only code that's going to execute in this sequence is this right here, because I'm not late for work and the dog is hungry. So I'm going to do that. So you should only see feed dog. Feed dog. So there's another construct we've built here. If, else, if. And we've also seen if, else. So there's a lot of different logic you can build into this. And you can build this else if on multiple conditions, on and on and on and on and on in multiple ways. So you can chain them together. Else if I'm late for work, just late for work, then do something. Else if, else if, else if. You can create all these different branches. Now I wouldn't suggest it. Now this if, else if, you can also nest. What's called nesting, and this is one of your first introductions to nesting, is to enter a branch of code and then enter another branch of code within that, another condition. So I could say if not late for work, and then I could say if dog is hungry. So now I will enter into this. This is true. I'll enter into this and then do another check. So this is when I had the two ampersands and put those together, it was shorthand, but I could create other conditions, and I could keep nesting and nesting and nesting and putting if statements inside of if statements inside of if statements to create all of these different possibilities. So if I say this, if I put false, so if late for work is false, so not late for work, so that actually evaluates to true because it's false. And if the dog is hungry, which it's false, so actually nothing should print on the screen. You see nothing printed on the screen because none of these paths landed on any of these console.write lines. So that's kind of some complexity and some things to work around, but now you can actually start making decisions. With if, else if, and else, and then nesting the if statements, you can make an innumerable amount of decisions. There's another construct that I'm going to go into in the next video called a switch statement that will take all of these else ifs and compress them into something that's a little easier to digest and a little easier to read. But you've got the tools now to branch your code out. So I would charge you to actually start trying to create some conditions because like you saw with the methods where I passed in expressions and method calls and that sort of thing inside of the arguments as arguments inside of methods, you can actually do the same thing here. If 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, that's okay. That's proper syntax. You could create a method down here, static bool, that returned a truth value, return true, and you could call that inside of here return, and that returned a truth value. So anything that returns a truth value, whether it's a variable, an expression, a method call, any of those things gets tested in here, and whatever gets tested inside here determines whether code drops inside the brackets or not, or the braces or not. So those are if statements. Those I covered a lot of material in this video, but that's a strong introduction into the options you have with if statements, which is called selection. So now you know sequencing, a sequence of statements, and you know selection, making decisions in your code. We'll discover switch statements in the next